Welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Friday, July the 26th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I am joined once again by producer JT. JT, thank you for, at the last minute, taking over the reins of the ship on our Tuesday show. If you missed on Tuesday, it was the JT and Stoney show. A combination that the masses, frankly, have been clamoring for as many as weeks, maybe even months. And we finally gave it to the people, courtesy of my wife going into labor. How are you?
I'm good. I was going to say, I've had a really productive week. It's been a very good week at Titans training camp. No idea where you've been. I think you
I've not been productive. My wife was productive, and I've just
yes,
sat
right.
around.
I
She was
think you
quite
just
literally productive. She created another person, like a new human just dropped.
well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it's been an exciting week of Titans football, and I know we were talking before the show. Even though you haven't been productive, you really have been kind of off the grid. It feels like for the past couple of days, dealing with the birth of your child, and so
It's
we
probably
were talking about.
people have seen or heard from me during Titans during the in season portion of things in a like maybe ever since I've been doing this. So maybe it was a nice respite of just not having to listen to Easton talk. I've not been super productive, but I have been awake more than any of you. I guarantee that. I've been up while you folks have been sleeping. I just haven't been doing anything. I've just been up, dreading the fact that I was up. I'm very tired.
So you're telling me you had the most amount of time to kind of finally sit down and look through the
And
analytics
do
and
important things,
and
I didn't
figure
do it.
out
Nope.
if Jack Gibbons or Kenneth Murray or any of these guys are going to be
Right.
the number one. You could have done that, but
Right.
instead, you were awaiting the birth of your child. No, but this is gonna be a good show today. I think we got a lot of show and tell. You were telling me that being off the grid has kind of left you, kind of alienated from the ongoings of practice the last 2 days. So I'm excited to fill you back in and fill in
Gun
the
to my head
people.
right now, I couldn't tell you one the most significant thing that's happened the last 2 days that I could tell you happened was that DeAndre Hopkins quote that we'll get to, I'm sure, later in the show, where he talked about how happy he is in Nashville. Other than that, I couldn't tell you a thing. I know that Tuesday the offense wasn't very good, and then today it was better. That's the extent of my knowledge. I've never been so uninformed on what has been going on. Not only was I not there, I've not been paying attention. I've been doing other more important things. But you know what? A lot of people take paternity leaves. They disappear. They take the month off for the podcast. My child is not yet 36 hours old, and that's not true. She's not yet 48 hours old, and I am here. And I am tired, but I am back for you people, and there will be no break. I won't be out there as much, but I will be here on the show. And between JT and I, we will have you at least single covered, at times double covered, at Titans camp all August long. So excited about that. Yeah, we went to the press conference on Tuesday. I was going to be on the show on Tuesday. We didn't advertise the Stoney and JT show because it wasn't going to be the Stoney and JT show until about 3 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. And I was talking to Braden Gall and Austin Stanley walking out of the Titans facility from was it Tuesday? Yeah, Monday? Tuesday press conference. I've lost my track of days. On the Tuesday press conference, and they're asking me about the baby and my wife and how she's doing. And the last thing I said was, I just wish she would come already. Like the baby would just get here. That'd be nice. So I could get on with my life and do things. Because you when you're waiting on a baby, you can't go anywhere. You can't do stuff, can't schedule things because you don't know when the baby's going to come. And I said that to them. And then I got in the car and I got a call from my wife no more than 5 minutes later. She's like, I think we need to go to the hospital. And then we did. I didn't go home. I went to the hospital in what I wore to the Titans facility. And then we had a baby at 1:15 in the morning. So that was exciting. Me and you and some friends of ours in a fantasy chat, as soon as you guys found out, you immediately, like the degenerates you are, started betting on what time she'd be here, started laying lines. Disgusting. And I love that for you guys. But no, she's great. Mom's great. Baby's great. They're downstairs hanging out. We just got home a couple hours ago from the hospital. And so we're back. So that's that. And if you want to see a picture of her, she's on my Instagram or my Twitter feed. So she's frankly, she's the most adorable baby, I think, currently doing the thing. So I'm a bit of a biased source, but I hired a third-party research firm, and they have in fact confirmed she is the cutest child in the game at the moment. So you don't want to miss that picture. Okay, JT, today's going to be like a normal training camp video, except the opposite, sort of. It's going to be all of the things you're used to hearing, but not from my mouth. It's going to be from JT's mouth, because while I've been playing Goo Goo Gaga for the last 48 hours. JT has been on the grind, on the beat at Titans practice. Here's another thing that's kind of wild, by the way, JT. I think today and yesterday were the only two closed practices the Titans are having. Is that correct? Did I hear that right?
I believe so. That's at least to the extent of my knowledge. Those are the only two that will be closed. We have practice on Saturday at Nissan that is open to fans for their welcome back weekend. And then I think the rest of the practices,
even all the ones at St. Thomas, are going to be open to at least some fans.
I believe all the way up and through the Seattle joint practices are open to the public. And that was with that link for people to sign up and get tickets, first come, first serve. So
if you had told me that last year that was going to be the case, I would have responded. So how did Mike Vrabel get fired? Because that doesn't track. That is fantastic for fans. That's very good and cool. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about the things that happened the last 2 days. And I'm reliably informed by JT that there are, in fact, interesting things to discuss. You heard from some interesting people. You saw some interesting things. So I'm basically just going to be interrogating you, and you're going to be showing off all the clips that you got on today's show. And I'm going to ask the dumb man questions. Before we get to a rundown from the first 2 days of training camp, though, a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, if you're with us live on a Thursday afternoon, we appreciate you being here. And we thank you for your patronage of the Hot Read podcast. Today of all days, we need your help. We often ask for you to like and subscribe, which you should do in case you haven't already. Go and do that right now. Head on over to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. Find this live stream on the Broadway Sports Media YouTube page. Click in, join the comment section where Henry and Stoney, and Glory Day Sports are all hanging out with us. Want to hear your thoughts and comments on the beginning of Titans training camp over there in the chat. And we're going to have in the link to this podcast. And if you're watching live, JT, we'll try to get this in the Twitter threads as well as the YouTube description of this live stream. We here at the 440 Podcast Network have a special survey going on right now. It is something we put together with a research firm. It is for you all, the fans of any of the 10 shows that we have here on the 440 Podcast Network, whether it's here at the Hot Read Podcast, Football and Other F Words, a football show, the Gold Standard, VandySports.com, for Club and Country, Music City Audible. I'm sure I'm missing. There's too many podcasts. The Paul Kaharski podcasts. Thank you. Pod Bless America. We've got a wide variety of podcasts here at the 440 Podcast Network. In case you didn't know that, there are others. You should check them out as well. And if you listen to any of them, even sporadically, we would be super, super thankful if you would go and click that link. It's like a 5-minute survey. It's going to give us some information on our target audience demographics it's going to help us help you. It is going to allow us to produce the content that you guys want. Get rid of the fluff, get rid of the stuff that you guys see on your feed and you click past. You're like, I don't like when they do those episodes. It's going to be content refinement ultimately. So if you take 5 minutes of your time to help us out with this, one, we appreciate you, but two, you're going to be getting a better podcast and video show product in return. We need as many replies to this as possible. We push it the next couple of days, but it's not going to be going on forever. It's going to be a pretty short run here. So we need your replies very soon. Again, those replies, or excuse me, the link to make those replies in the survey in the live stream comment sections or the threads on social media. And then also, if you're listening on the podcast version of the show, the description of the podcast, you'll find that link right down there. Click in, help us out real quick. Even pause the podcast real quick. Do that and then come on back. We'd appreciate you doing that. Okay, JT, let's get to the Titans. And do we want to start with some news? Do you want to start with your most interesting topic? Where would you like to begin?
Well, I think you said something really interesting to start off the show here, and it was along the lines of, if that were to happen last year, you would have asked, is Mike Vrabel been fired? That wasn't really the only thing that we saw from practice today or yesterday, talking about things that are totally different from years past. As I quickly put the link here for you to take that survey in both the Broadway and 440 YouTube channel right there.
Okay,
so
perfect.
We'll put that in there real quick. But there's been a lot of things different and how they conduct themselves at training camp so far. Most notably today, when Brian Callahan comes out for his media availability, and the first thing he does is he says, first things first, let's get some transactions out of the way and give you injury updates on guys who are here at the facility, which I think a lot of us, as I think Paul Kaharski tweeted it out, now that the Titans media shock is over from Brian
Everyone's caught
Callahan
their
actually
breath.
giving us
To pick up the fainting people off the ground.
information
Yeah.
about certain injuries and not
Without having to
kind of
ask.
hiding
He
it
just volunteered
without
it.
having to ask. He
Yeah.
volunteered it, and it wasn't behind this veil of
That's
shadows that the
astonishing.
Mike Vrabel regime would have had it behind. I think that
State
was something
secrets.
that was really interesting. So we'll
A
get
welcome
into those first. Exactly. But there were a bunch of transactions that happened today. 2 additions and 1 subtraction from the Titans roster today, most notably the return of Corey Levin. Welcome back as he re-signs
Can't kill
with the
this guy.
Titans.
Corey Levin in two-tone blue. Can't kill him.
I got the sheet this morning with all the players and all the numbers, and all of a sudden I saw Corey Levin on there, and
Thought it might have
as
been an
soon as
old
I did
copy.
that,
Is this updated? Are we sure about this? Yeah.
I mean, it really was just a welcome surprise. I was like, is this Groundhog's Day? Or what's going on here? But besides the point, he's back. And that I think is an interesting conversation about what kind of leads to him being back. And then also they sign inside linebacker Shane Ray, a former first-round pick from Denver, and Brian Callahan had some thoughts on that as well. But with that, they did need to make some room for those 2 additions. And whether you are surprised or saw this coming, the Titans release rookie running back, undrafted free agent Dylan Johnson from out of Washington.
Wow.
As you know, it was a bit of a shock for me, but as he was one of my favorite front runners to make this team because I thought he fit the role of what the Titans would want in a third running back or so. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's kind of had the writing on the wall a little bit as you've listened to the show the past couple of weeks, through OTAs. His performance there kind of left us a little uninspired, and it didn't seem like the coaches were too high on him. So that means the running back race is already getting kind of thin, and we're looking to see who will take that third running back spot.
I didn't think it was going to matter. I'm pretty sure on my way too early 53-man roster, didn't I? I'm pretty sure I had him in. Like on the team.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you won't be you're starting off 0 for 1.
It's like it's like the 4th second of the season here, and I'm already wrong. Yeah, man. I'm surprised. I mean, you know what it means? It means welcome back to the Tennessee Titans, the nasty nut. He's in the driver's seat here. And I'm sorry if that's a little bit dismissive of Hassan Haskins, but I'm willing to be a little bit dismissive of Hassan Haskins until I see significantly better play from him as an actual runner. If they choose him, it's going to be for the special teams, right? Because besides his special teams prowess, which he is quite fantastic on special teams, why would you make that decision exactly? I don't know. Levin is not surprising. I guess the takeaway, JT, is there's your backup center, right? We were kind of talking about Daniel Brunskill playing there in the spring. He said it was out of necessity. Do they potentially see him there or not? And then I was about to ask you. You can't actually reveal where he was playing on the air, but I'm assuming was Levin out there practicing today, or was he just signed today?
He was out there today as well,
playing center, I'd imagine.
I believe so. He was out there at least during the stretching period and with some of the individual drills for sure. Yeah, I mean, you talk about how Daniel Brunskill at OTAs said he was playing that more out of necessity. Now you get to not even the second day of practice, and they've brought back in a guy in Corey Levin who has been the backup center a couple times before, and so that reinforces the idea that maybe Daniel Brunskill is, could he still be that depth option for them behind Corey Levin now at center? Possibly, but that really just kind of makes this race for the right guard position a lot more interesting now. Because
it's crowded, man.
It all of a sudden becomes crowded when you move Daniel Brunskill back over to that right guard only position. Now you have 3 guys in Sadiq Charles, Dylan Radins, and Daniel Brunskill, all fighting for that starting job. And now you kind of think that one of those 3 may not even make the roster, despite the depth you need. But now that hole is kind of filled by Corey Levin, it makes me wonder, what is Daniel Brunskill's role on this team?
Yeah, if you're going to have 10 linemen on the roster, which, they could have 9, 10, 11. I'd be kind of surprised if they kept 12 linemen. You can't, and 5 of them are starters, which means you got 2 tackles and 3 interior linemen. You can't have 3 or 4 backup guards. Somebody, you got to have, You have some tackles in there, I promise, and you need at least one backup center. So somebody's not going to cut it unless they prove themselves to be capable of being a versatile enough player that they are comfortable taking them as a backup center guard or taking them as a backup guard tackle or a swing play. I don't know. And then you mentioned that third signing in Shane Ray. Does that move you at all? I'm completely unmoved by that decision. I'm not upset with it, sharing the roster, whatever, but it's been, it's go back to COVID and then go 2 years before that. That was the last time Shane Ray was playing meaningful football. That's not necessarily, I'm not banking on Shane Ray making an impact for this team.
Yeah, well, let's get to a couple of these clips because Brian Callahan had some things to say both about Shane Ray and then also we can talk about the other things that Callahan had to announce here. First, let's talk about the surprise of Brian Callahan just giving us some of this information willingly today. Here's what he had to say at the beginning of his press conference.
Today's transactions. Injury-wise, Harold Landry is still out. He's been sick, so it's just an illness. We'll have to work him back in as he gets healthy. Anybody who's been sick for a while knows he can't come out that quickly, so he'll be working back. And then Cheeto's going to be out for he's going to miss some time with a calf injury, so it'll be a couple of weeks probably, just so you see what he's out here, but he's not practicing.
And so that was a lot of information as well. Big news there. First of all, Harold Landry, we kind of were wondering because he and Daniel Brunskill both were not out there yesterday. And so we get a little bit more clarification that both Daniel Brunskill and Harold Landry was sick. Brunskill was feeling good enough to come back out there today. Harold Landry, like he said, sounds like it took him a little bit longer than they have had, but sounds like he is not going to be not out there for too much longer. And then the big one is Cheeto Awuzie, one of their big free agent signings this offseason to kind of take over that cornerback 2 role. He has a lower body injury, the calf injury that I guess must have popped up during practice yesterday because he was out there practicing with the team on day 1. And it sounds like it's not just something that it's not a minor injury if he's going to be out for a couple of weeks here. And so that is kind of the first big blow, I think, to this team so far in training camp. And it's going to leave the door open for some guys to get some work with the ones. I think you're going to see a lot more upcoming from guys like the rookie and Jarvis Brownlee Jr., UDFA, Gabe Judy Lally will probably get a lot more time here to prove himself. And then whether we like it or not, I think Trey Avery is going to be getting some looks out there because, like we said, the top 3 are really nice. It's a really nice group of cornerbacks, but we've continued to talk about the depth, and now a day and a half in, and the depth is already being challenged here because Trey Avery is probably going to get some reps here throughout training camp while he is gone. So I thought that was really interesting to see him announce that today.
Just real quick, when he came into the podium and we just had a statement at the beginning and said all of that, did you guys have to stifle a round of applause? Like what was the sentiment in the room when that? It had to have been a pleasant surprise.
It was, and I do enjoy Brian Callahan's he gives a State of the Union little address at the beginning. Even before this, at some of the OTAs, he kind of talks about how it was out there today. He was talking about how it was muggy, and that's gonna bring some other challenges on. It's pretty interesting to see this guy kind of give a recap of practice before we get into the questions here, instead of just a Mike Vrabel gets up there and says, "What do you guys want?" And then we questions.
All right, Teresa.
It's a nice change of pace, and I think it also alleviated some of to pull back the curtain and kind of hear the process. He also went into, hey, I know you guys probably didn't see us throwing a lot of deep balls today. That's by design. It was a lot of over the middle kind of, 5 or 8 yard out routes. Like that's by design. We don't want to put too much tread on the tires too early here. And so I think Brian Callahan, it's a breath of fresh air. I think a lot of us were pretty stunned and surprised to see that. A lot of us were looking around and we're like, is this actually happening? Like, what's going on? But it was
what it is, honestly. It's a
pleasant surprise.
It is a pleasant surprise, and it is a good thing for us in the media. Which means if it's a good thing for the media, it's a good thing for the fans because the fans are getting more access. I will say, though, it's not just him being a good guy, and I'm not trying to attribute a malevolent purpose to what he's doing. It's not this, but it is also very politically savvy for him to come out, because you just mentioned multiple things instances where he's come out and said, hey, today, before you guys even ask, I know that we didn't throw the ball deep much. That was on purpose. That was the point of the practice today. Hey, by the way, I know you noticed these guys not out there today. Here's where they are, what's wrong with them, and when they're going to be back. That's the kind of thing. It's like he is thinking, he turns his media brain on before he comes over and talks to us and thinks, okay, what's going to be the clickbait title of the day? And how can I shut it down immediately? How can I keep that smoke as low as possible? Because that's precisely the kind of thing that you would write about and hear about from a Titans practice in the past, because it wasn't addressed very clearly or very thoroughly, or was there was declining to comment on the topic. So it's politically savvy on his part. And I don't know if he's just I think he's just savvy enough and thinks that way. Now there's a chance that he just has like his people come over to him, Mr. President, they're going to ask you about why you didn't throw the ball deep. They're already on Twitter talking about where the deep balls were today, Mr. President. Maybe. I don't think so. I think he's just built like that, which is fantastic. I want to make a comment and ask a question about some of these guys. You mentioned losing Chido Awuzie being the first kind of shoot a drop in the injury game. If there was ever such thing as a good injury, which it's not, and I'm not happy that he is hurt. I hope that he comes back sooner than the timeline that's laid out for him. I hope Chido's fine. I do think there are a couple of key positions on this team where we've talked, really wore out the topic of, wow, they're starters. Love that. But it gets rough after that. We've talked about that all summer long. And if those position groups see, maybe it's veteran rest days, or maybe it is some starters suffering injuries, that God forbid, but it's going to happen. It can be a blessing in disguise, I think, for us to find out a little sink or swim style trial by fire, get these guys in there. Gabe Judy Lawley, surprise, buddy. You're going to spend 2 weeks now running a lot more with the ones than you otherwise were. Hey, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., we're not going to ease you in nearly as much now, buddy, because you're going to be in there getting the work against the big dogs. Like, let's see you guard DeAndre Hopkins. Let's see you press him off the line of scrimmage. That's the kind of thing and sometimes that can ruin a guy. That sometimes they sink, sometimes they swim. But if you can swim, man, and you're given the chance to swim early, that's a really good thing. And it can allow for this team to feel more confident about their depth, as well as fans to say, hey, we've got some diamonds in the rough here. We got some guys that can actually play. Look at this guy, in practice. I can't believe Jarvis Brownlee Jr. held Calvin Ridley to no catches today, in 5 matchups. That was really fantastic. He did a great job. I think this guy could potentially be a future starter on the cheap, and he's fantastic backup for us. So that's the kind of thing that from a media standpoint in camp, it's not always a bad thing. It's not a good thing by any means, but it's not always a bad thing necessarily for a starter to not be out there the entire time.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Guys that will try to have an opportunity to step up, mainly the first two, Gabe Judy Lawley and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Kenneth in the comments said, secretly hoping for Caleb Farley to sneak into the rotation. The door isn't exactly open, but there's an opening now. The door's a little bit more open than it was before, I think. Right. So anything is possible. Now, I will say, Caleb Farley is the only person out there, and I think the only player in all of the NFL to be wearing sweatpants in the muggy heat out there today.
He only wears sweatpants, dude. I don't get it.
I don't understand it either.
I'm not built like that.
It's just an observation I thought I should share. Caleb Farley, there are 2 guys out there. Caleb Farley wearing sweatpants out in this 85 degree super humid heat, and then Leroy Watson, the sicko that he is, wearing a sweatshirt underneath his practice jersey. I was I'm not built like you guys.
And he's a big boy. At least with a cornerback, you're like, 0% body fat. Guy probably runs really cool. He's trying to keep those leg muscles warm. Mm-hmm. You're a big lineman. Like, what are you, buddy? What are you doing? What are you doing? How is this not heat death? Yeah, I don't know.
It was impressive for him to be out there with the guys today in that wearing what he was. But we can move on here now to kind of coming full circle here to another thing that Brian Callahan had to say. Another guy who was also out there besides Corey Levin, Shane Ray, was also out there practicing today. And Brian Callahan was asked about the addition of him, what he can bring to this team. And here's what he had to say on the matter.
I know Shane played quite a bit of football. I actually was in Denver when Shane was drafted. It just turns out that way. So I've known Shane for a long time, and he came in, he performed well, and I think it's always impressive when veterans like him that have played enough football come into a mini camp tryout and practice their ass off, and play hard and do all those things because they love playing football. So excited to get Shane here. We needed some guys to rotate in there and the outside linebacker spot and compete. So we've got to play a little bit of football in the league, and I think he can help us.
And so, yeah, I mean, there was a clear connection here with it. Brian Callahan even saying that he was with the Denver Broncos when they drafted him all those years ago. I mean, he is a veteran now in the league here. He's, as Brian Callahan said, he's played a lot of football, but I think that they've obviously had their eye on Shane Ray here, as he was one of the guys who had a mini camp tryout with the team back in OTAs. So, bringing him in, what does that do to the interior linebacking depth? I have a lot of thoughts on this current linebacking group. I think through 2 days of practice, I'm still pretty uninspired by what I've seen. I'm
shocked. I can't believe that's your pick.
Obviously what I think this is signaling is that they also still don't really know exactly who is going to win that starting job. Bringing a guy in like Shane Ray, I think is just another kind of position where they're going to rotate as many guys in and out, see as many combinations as they possibly can to find out what exactly works and how they can build a linebacking room that's just deep enough to, get them through the season and survive, I think is the best way that you can say that. And so bringing a veteran in like Shane Ray, I think adds another piece to the rotation that, maybe they need to at least survive through training camp. And then, as we get to the season, a guy who may have a little bit more intuition and experience.
I don't know, man. I don't mean to be a hater. I really don't. And I hope he's good for all of those things. This is just the latest example of the fact that draft pedigree follows you forever. And if you are highly drafted, it will allow you to work in the league for like a minimum of 8 to 10 years, no matter how bad you are. Like, you have to be Isaiah Wilson levels of natural disaster to not stick around if you are a highly drafted guy that a serious number of scouts around the league fell in love with you as a prospect, and they don't really pay attention to you once you get into the league. And then they say, oh, he's a free agent. He's cheap. We can go and get him. I can fix him. I swear I can fix him. You never can fix him. I mean, was it over the weekend that we saw from Packers training camp? Or maybe it was early this week we saw from Packers training camp where, hang on, I'm going to find Andy Herman said, Andre Dillard, remember that guy? Andre Dillard has no shot blocking Rashawn Gary. Just a massive mismatch. Gary with another sack. And Rashawn Gary follows it up with another sack. Just unstoppable. I responded with the Batman meme where it's like, does he know? I don't know. I hope Packers fans don't take this as, wow, this Rashawn Gary cat is good. And don't get me wrong, Rashawn Gary, very good football player. This is not a reflection on Rashawn Gary, my friends. This is the man that Andre Dillard would collect 19 sacks a day against throughout the August period of last year's training camp. But you know what? Andre Dillard, first round pick. Oh, that college tape. You watch that college tape? There's a good player in there. Just got to get him out of there. Coach, I can coach this guy up.
And so we were talking about that. The Andre Dillard thing, and then the replies to that tweet as well that said with screenshots of like the Rashawn Gary sack line over under 10.5, and it's like, do I place this? And I was like, no, do not do that. Do not do that.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
We were talking about that at training camp, but you are right.
Maybe Andre Dillard, is he an industry plant for Vegas? Maybe he's an industry plant and he's just he's a mark. That would explain so much, actually. It would. But anyway, sorry, continue.
I was just going to say, I mean, that is very possible. But Shane Ray, I guess, you are right to the extent that, he is getting a shot because of that pedestal, that first round pick pedestal that he is on. But, it is a guy that, to Brian Callahan's credit, he's familiar with. And I think that also says quite a bit about that as well. So we'll have to see how he performs both in the preseason and how this entire linebacking room shakes out. We can move on now to, unless you had something else to say.
Well, I was just going to say, I can't believe we made it 30 minutes into this show and have not talked about Devondre Sweat. I'm assuming he's going to be a topic eventually.
Oh, so next up, we're going to talk about T'Vondre Sweat here.
Fantastic.
The next clip.
Fantastic. I'm glad that was in your plans. We're on the
Yes.
same wavelength.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
yeah, I've had people ask me about T'Vondre Sweat texting me that don't realize I was having a kid. They're like, "How's he look? Start practice." And I was like, "I don't know. Go ask somebody else." So JT, how was T'Vondre Sweat? What's he look like? He was out there, I assume.
T'Vondre Sweat has been out there
Okay.
both days. T'Vondre Sweat is here. He is out there. And I've had a couple people also ask me how T'Vondre Sweat looks. And the thing I coming back to saying every single time is that he looks as advertised. T'Vondre Sweat is probably the biggest dude out there amongst everyone. And, you know, when you're watching him in these drills with the other defensive linemen and in the 7-on-7s or in the 11-on-11s and things like that, he's a guy that is not going to win with the bend or the quick agility. But there's no reason for this man to be as big as he is and run and be as fast as he is. I'm like, this guy, I no longer feel bad that T'Vondre Sweat could probably beat me in a 40-yard
I was going to
dash.
ask, are you certain you could beat him in any distance foot race? Because
I don't think I can. Watching him again, just up close and personal, this dude,
I think I'd have a
is
chance,
cooking
but I'm
me.
not
I think
like,
I'd have a chance,
yeah, I could
but
beat that guy.
No,
I don't think that.
Freak of nature with the way that he is able to accelerate and get up to his top speed that he probably shouldn't be able to get to.
The low end torque
Exactly.
is outrageous. This guy can get up. Yeah.
The power that he shows as well on his reps is also very impressive. And so Brian Callahan, we asked him today about what he's seen from T'Vondre Sweat through these first two practices, and here's what he had to say.
A lot of guys right now that probably aren't in full football shape to go play a full game, and that's why we're doing training camp. But everything I've seen from him is what I saw on tape. You know, he's big, strong, he moves incredibly well for a person of his size, and he's an awesome personality to be around. So really have enjoyed what he's done so far. Happy he's ready to roll and healthy and practicing. So looking forward to seeing what's to come when the pads come out with him.
And so Brian Callahan shares much of the same sentiment here with T'Vondre Sweat. You know, he's as advertised for this team. And, you know, I think he also gives credit to T'Vondre Sweat, you know, with this whole kind of conversation we've been having about T'Vondre Sweat being in shape enough or whatever. It's the second day of practice, and I promise you guys that there are many guys out there struggling to get back into this football shape. It's not something that you come in ready for. Almost probably 75% of these guys out there are still somewhat trying to get back into football shape. And so therefore, I don't believe that T'Vondre Sweat should be treated any differently than these other guys who are trying to work back. And so he has done everything he's needed to do so far. Can I say
something? This is not a dishonest line of reasoning, but one of the more uninformed lines of reasoning. When I see people talk about that he's not in football shape, look at this guy. It is July 25th. If you talk to any NFL veteran that is honest, they will tell you pretty much play yourself into football. Like, not throughout the season, but like you get back to camp, you can be conditioned up for sure. You can be highly conditioned. But you gotta get out there and do the thing and get through training camp to get yourself back into football shape pretty much. There are some rare exceptions of guys, but for the most part, that's what they're doing. They're out there revving it back up. And so when Brian Callahan comes out and says there are many guys that are getting themselves back up to football shape and getting that conditioning to where it needs to be, that's not fluff where he's trying to cover for the T'Vondre Sweats of the team. He is telling the truth. And if T'Vondre Sweat is in that group, guess what? I think it would be fair for me to assume the big boys on the team are the ones most often having to do that. Like they come in, you hear all the time about how linemen, you lose weight throughout the season. So it's kind of a different science for them, right? They come in a little bit bigger. You got to come in with a little bit of baby weight on you so that you can be bulked up and afford to lose a couple pounds as you sweat it out through August. And then you get into the football season and you can't quite keep the pounds on. Like, you got to kind of be that way. So it's just dumb. And I know you have more on T'Vondre Sweat, but can I real quick shout out our buddy Stoney, who on Football and Other F Words, I believe yesterday, went on the best 60 seconds of podcasting I've ever heard from Stoney. It is a fantastic rant on the defense of T'Vondre Sweat and how he does not blame the guy. And we were talking about this with him yesterday about how this guy has kind of seemed clammed up a little bit. And I think you're going to see it here in this video from T'Vondre where you guys were talking to him. He doesn't seem like the same guy in an interview that he was showing us when we got the Zoom interview with him after the draft. And I don't blame the guy because he's a highly drafted. If I was a highly drafted rookie, put yourself in his shoes for 2 minutes, guys, and you are joining a new team, and then the entire you just got drafted, you've not seen the field yet, and the entire summer, all you see is your new fan base talking about how you were overdrafted, you're too fat, you're gonna be a personality problem off of the football field. They don't think you got it. Like they're not even giving you a chance. Despite the fact that in college, this is not a charity pick. In college, you kicked ass and won awards for kicking ass, and nobody seems to care. On a personal level, I'd be kind of heartbroken. You get to the NFL, you achieve your dream, and everybody hates you before you've done anything on your own team. That's heartbreaking. And I'd also be furious. And I would be surprised if he doesn't feel both of those things. So I don't mean to interrupt you, JT, but I wanted to just give my 2 cents on that because it's been bothering me as much as it seems to have been bothering our friend Stoney.
No, I kind of second all of your sentiments there.
And maybe he sucks. I'm not saying he's not going to. I don't know. I'm just saying it's been unfair. I'm saying it's been unfair.
And I agree with you. I think, it's not to say that you can't judge T'Vondre Sweat, but you need to. It's time that as I said on Twitter yesterday in reply to Stoney's video as well, it's time to judge T'Vondre Sweat the player and evaluate that. And no longer stop evaluating T'Vondre Sweat, the person, because it's clear that he's done everything he needed to do to get to where he is. He's done everything they've asked of him so far. The injury was a real thing in recovering to be healthy enough to be here and be consistent in practices every day for the Titans. He's done that. He is now here with the team every single day. His teammates obviously think that he is a welcome presence in the locker room. From everyone we've talked to, about T'Vondre Sweat, they love his personality. He is a positive player in this locker room for this team and this defense. He has done everything that they thought he could be and what they think he can be on the field. And so it's one thing to continue on this T'Vondre Sweat evaluation and psychoanalysis of the guy. But it just doesn't matter anymore because now it's now about the results. It's about the results.
Let's just let him play football and see what happens.
And like you said, he may struggle. I don't think we talk about how good the player can be, but we still have to understand that he's a rookie. He's a second-round pick.
Breaking news: rookie struggles at the beginning of NFL career.
Exactly.
Put it on the front page. An A1 story.
It's a real shame that, even if he does get out of the gate slow, that he's going to be scrutinized a lot more than I think he should. But it's time to just look at the performance on the field and nothing else around that until he proves us wrong, I think is what I can say, which I don't think he will.
It's going to be real rich if in the first month, even the first game, you see T'Vondre Sweat have a rough game, and you see JC Latham have a rough game, and I'm going to be pretty surprised people are fair about it. I think it's going to be a real double standard of like, well, left tackle's a tough position. He's changing, but like you got to start somewhere, right? I'm not worried about it. He's done everything he needs to do. And then T'Vondre Sweat, like this guy played 20 snaps in his first game, second round pick, top 40 pick. What are we doing? It's going to be so frustrating to see people give one guy all the rope in the world. I'm not saying that you should be harder necessarily. Like, yes, both of them may struggle, and both of them deserve a second to catch their breath in the NFL. But you can't give miles of rope to one guy and absolutely no rope to the other if you're going to be a fair evaluator of football. It's just it's silly. So we can continue.
Yeah, and so we did get the chance to talk to him yesterday after practice. The first of the two questions here, of clips I have here, is just how he is acclimating from the college level to the NFL level. Obviously, it is a big change from training camps and differing practices. So we get his thoughts about that. And then a little bit of a response to how he is kind of dealing with that adversity and the pressure around him, and how important it is to have guys like Jeffrey Simmons and Keandre Coburn with him on this team. And so here are his answers to both those questions.
For my rookie year, I'll say it's a lot different because, you're on your own, you know what I mean? So really just working out and just trying to get prepared for this. Used to it.
Anything,
it is.
And you mentioned Jeff, having Keandre, like how big is that for you in this process?
It's great, especially having Coburn, He was one of my older cats at UT, so it was just great being with him also. And just Jeff, I mean, Jeff is Jeff. Y'all everybody know. So.
You don't know.
And so, you know, he says that he's used to it, and you know, it is what it is. And so, you know, props to him being able to kind of live with that noise and still be able to produce on the field. And like I said, I mean, going back to even
Can I
to
ask how's he looked out there? We've not really diatribe aside. The first 2 days of practice. Any thoughts on what he's looked like in that group?
I would say that he plays with the power and the strength that he needs to on that line, you know, especially I would say on the first day, where the defense was kind of suffocating. The tandem is there. the two boys are out there.
Couple big
playing.
fellas. Yeah.
There's a couple big fellas out there. And if they can elevate that and get that to work, even 75% of the time, man, is it going to, like we talked about, open up some avenues for some other guys on the outside. And, you know, even a guy like Jamal Adams, who is able to blitz off the line and do what he does best. It's gonna mean a lot. I think the first day, the offensive lineman got a helpful scoop of the T'Vondre Sweat experience. Now, on the second day, I still think that he played with the disruptive power that I've seen on the tape. However, you know, on the second day, Bill Callahan came back with a vengeance today and had his boys on the offensive line right. And I think that was a big
good.
They were able to have a little bit more success today. I saw Bill Callahan a lot more animated today, being a lot more excited.
Get them in pads. I need them in pads.
And like I said, it's really still hard to evaluate.
Right.
I want to talk more about T'Vondre Sweat, but at the same time, when T'Vondre Sweat and these guys are you know, engaging for 2.5 seconds and then kind of giving up because that's what they're told to do, because there's no pads on, it's kind of hard to see the full T'Vondre Sweat experience. But you can see the kind of structure and the outline of the player. And now, like you said, I'm eager for, like Brian Callahan said at the press conference today, next Tuesday. I'm eager. I want to see it.
Oh, is that the date? We know next Tuesday?
I believe he said, well, he
I
said,
will be there no matter what. I will be there. I will be there.
He said, don't quote him on it, but he believes that it is next Tuesday.
All right.
So,
I'm quoting him and I will be there. All right.
Anyways, that's enough T'Vondre Sweat. I feel like we've gone on a diatribe. You know,
yeah, there are other players on this team. How'd they do?
There are other players on this team, and another Stoney Keeley favorite we're going to talk about here. John Ojukwu is a guy that has been getting a lot of buzz over the past couple of days because, as we know, MPF is not. He's currently on the active PUP, still, you know, coming back from his knee scope and kind of cleaning up that injury there. So we expect him to be out here eventually. But right now, that right tackle spot is open for grabs, and it's up for grabs. And a guy that we've talked a lot about and who has been a guy who has looked pretty good so far through training camp and also in OTAs is John Ojukwu. And so Brian Callahan was asked about him today through the first 2 days, and here's what he had to say about OJ.
And that's a good thing. You know, he's not making errors. He's doing what he's supposed to do, what he's coached to do, and doing it well. Again, this is all going to change next week. We'll really see what it's all about. But as far as the work that he's done, his attention to detail, the techniques, and knowing what to do, has been really good. He's done a nice job, and he's been physical. He's been locked in the meeting room, so he's made the most of an opportunity, and I'm happy to see it.
And so it's pretty nice praise from his head coach. You know, the biggest thing he said at the beginning, which may kind of sound weird, but it is true. You don't notice him out there, and that's a really good thing. When you don't notice him out there, not making too many mistakes, kind of looking the part when they need him to step up. And so I think right now, as we talked about on Tuesday's show with Stoney, he still thinks that OJ is the outside candidate to win that right tackle job. Hearing that today, where Brian Callahan says you don't really notice him out there and he's making the most of his opportunity, it sounds certainly like he has as good of a shot as any to be the starting right tackle of this team.
I expect MPF to take this job. Do not get me wrong. But if the first day MPF is back out there, you're still getting first team OJ, which we won't be able to say explicitly on the show because we can't talk about exactly where guys played, when, where, and how. But if it happens, there will be signs. There will be signs. We will make that known by the way we talk about them. And I don't know what I'll do. I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does,
But I do agree with you. I think this is what we talked about on Tuesday before we even got into practices. We talked about who was in the pole position for the right tackle spot. And I think from everything we heard from Bill Callahan at OTAs to even now talking about MPF at Tuesday's press conference, it still seems like MPF is in the pole position based on, that veteran kind of presence he has now. He has the experience on the right side of the line. And it seems like once they get him back out here, they are going to continue that. But the counterpoint to that argument is that, MPF is a little bit behind the 8 ball compared to these other guys who are out there putting in the work every day. Not to say that he's not putting the work in inside and off the practice field, but that's a totally different animal. And so, if MPF is not out here until next week and they already have the pads on and then he looks like he's behind the 8 ball, that's where I think you get into some trouble. And I think we should continue on here because, man, we're doing a lot of show and tell today. And
there's more to show, there's more to tell. Let's do it.
There's more to show, more to tell. And, now I don't blame you anymore, Easton, for people telling you that we can't get out of here in an hour because, you just get sucked up into it. And so
my, how the tables have how the turntables. When you're in charge of the content, you realize there's a lot to talk about.
All right, and now let's finally get to.
All right.
I'm not gonna comment on that. Let's get to the QB1 of this team, Will Levis. We had the opportunity to talk to him yesterday, and we were talking about one of the biggest storylines of the Titans training camp coming into it is how is he going to look, and how is that kind of development and the tweaking of his mechanics. How is that going to show up in the first 2 days? Brian Callahan, I don't have the clip, but was very confident in his quarterback today and said if he continues to stack good days like the last two, he's going to, have what it takes to be a real factor and real playmaker in this league. And so Brian Callahan was very complimentary of him today, and he's looked really good. You go back and I believe the Titans posted a clip yesterday of a throw to MPF where, it looks like he has a little bit of a softer touch on the throw.
And they got MPF out there with the hurt knee and everything. That's crazy.
Oh, sorry.
They had him
NWI.
NWI.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sorry. NWI. My bad.
I'm sad I missed that. That sounds amazing.
NWI. To NWI with a little bit of a softer touch. That it's something that I think a lot of us noticed was noticeably different about Will Levis's throw. No longer. Maybe last year that throw would have been an absolute bullet and maybe not completable.
Lasers everywhere. Just lasers.
This year, it's like he's taken a little bit off of it and put a little bit more finesse on it. And so we were able to talk to him about that and also how he's grown as a leader. And so here's what he had to say first off on his trip to Cabo and being that leader. And then the second clip here is a little bit more on those mechanics and what he's been working on.
So I was in a position to do stuff like that, and obviously it being my first off season, being the starting quarterback and having that job, I had seen guys in the league do that with their guys in the past, and I was really looking forward to having that opportunity to go and do some team bonding in a cool spot and get some work in at the same time. But yeah, that was a cool trip, and then it's not just fun stuff like that. It's throughout camp. How can I help guys and reach out in any way possible and just be available to help them and help them improve and help some guys make the team. So I'm here as a resource, and they know that. I'm going to continue to do my best to show them that I can be that for them. I think being a little calmer, not as dramatic with some of the things I'm doing with my footwork, especially on the plant foot, and then once I get to the top of my drop, my base. I know I've talked about that a lot, but I feel really good where I'm at with that. I feel like at the top of my drops and through my hitches, I'm able to keep myself in a more consistent position to deliver the ball. And just gotta keep working on making it more consistent.
And so that's kind of the focus here. He's kind of calming it down. And so as Glory Day Sports in the comments says, I prefer the term piss missile. No more piss missiles. It seems like we've matured into his second year, and it's no longer see target throw ball hard.
It's blow Chig's hands clean off his body in the end zone anymore. That's kind of disappointing.
I mean, it's still in there, right?
It could happen. Still in his body. That's right.
It's still in there, but I think that it is. You're not going to see it as much, and I think we've kind of going back to what Brian Callahan said at the beginning of the day. It's kind of in the plan to get these receivers back on the field, working on that crossing in breaking routes in things only about 8 to 10 yards down the field, because I think that's something that needs more emphasis for Will Levis. We know Will Levis can chuck the ball 45, 50 yards down the field at any given moment. Like, let's start seeing them, in this new Brian Callahan offense where we've seen kind of shades of a system where, much like Joe Burrow, the death by 1,000 cuts, these utilizing the middle of the field in these short yardage plays to, wear out a defense and make them tired. That's something that Will Levis is not really used to. And so I think, by design, we're starting to see a lot more of that.
I don't have much to add there. Just that I'm glad that he started with a strong day in the first two, and it's going to be on him to stack these days. I'm curious to see if the narrative after, let's say, 2 weeks becomes, okay, we can, I think, say there's enough sample size now. He looks different in training camp so far than he did in the spring, because that's ultimately what we're looking for, right? That's what we need to see from him.
Yeah, and I think, today there was a lot of great defensive pass breakups, but the ball was really nicely thrown. There was one to Tyler Boyd that was broken up by Roger McCreary, which was right in the basket. Great play by Roger McCreary. And then to end the day, he threw a really nice ball a little bit more down the field to DeAndre Hopkins, which Gabe Jeudy-Lally may or may not have committed several pass interference calls on that. But
listen, rookie mistake, future Hall of Famer. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Exactly. But he has looked good so far. So far, he is answering that storyline with 2 thumbs up. And so now we can move on to 2 more guys here. First of all, Jeffrey Simmons, we had the opportunity to talk to him yesterday about kind of being, now the face of the franchise a little bit, with Derrick Henry gone. He is not only a leader on the defense, but a leader in the clubhouse. How does he handle kind of being that face of the franchise now, and being that guy that everyone looks to? And I thought that he gave a very lengthy and fantastic answer to this question yesterday, and here's what he had to say.
I go back a couple years ago, like when I first got here, I had guys like Jarrell Casey, even Daquan, Wesley Woodyard, all them guys who I was, they always, when you become a leader, you have to know when to follow. And I think as I was growing, especially through my first year as a rookie, I was learning a lot from them guys. And I want to say probably like going into my second year and then really my third year where I really felt like, this was my team. I've been feeling that way, as y'all know, like on Sundays, I break the huddle down. That's something I take pride in. But as when you're growing, trying to grow as a leader, you want that responsibility because it's not, I guess what I would say, when you're first looking at it, when you come into the building, it's about you, how you are approaching the day. When you have a bad day of practice, you have a bad rep, guys looking at your body language. And then one thing I talk to the defense about the practice is just body language, and like I said, I take full responsibility of it. I love it. I love challenges, but at the end of the day, I've been felt like this was my team. I don't try to do more or less of my job, but I also been feeling like I was a leader. I've been feeling that, but like I said, I saw what Randall said, just the interview he had. But at the end of the day, I take responsibility of the team. It's just like, I'm standing up for my guys, no matter what it is, holding them accountable, having their back, whatever it may be. But like I said, we all trying to get to one goal. We all have, it's a lot of leaders in this building. I hope they're not putting it on me. I'm looking for my other teammates to step up, even when I'm doing something wrong, or my body language, or anything in that nature. So I'm excited just to take on a bigger role, if you want to call that. But at the end of the day, I've been feeling like I've been had that role in the team. So how much that was?
Gosh,
that was a long answer. Wow.
It was.
That was a long answer.
It was a very lengthy answer, but I think it kind of gives you a look into kind of his mindset about where he is now in his career and the kind of taking that leadership role on his shoulders to be the guy and kind of carry this franchise with him in what he does. And I think it's really interesting to see that insight from him. And then before we get to a couple more clips, do not have the clip of DeAndre Hopkins today, but I think we should really discuss that as well. Mm-hmm. Very interesting answer from DeAndre Hopkins today, because when we talked to Rand Carthen on Tuesday, we were talking about, DeAndre Hopkins on the last year of his deal here, any possibility of an extension, or, what would that look like for DeAndre Hopkins specifically when
DeAndre Hopkins is one of the guys that we have considered potentially maybe extending. He's in that group, I believe, was the Very
I
definitive answer
believe
we got
that
from Rand
was
Carthon.
the answer there. And so when he was at the podium today, we asked him, you know, it was kind of like the way it was, Rand Carthon kind of stated it at the beginning was that these guys know they're standing with us and we know they're are standing with them. You know, like they have a good understanding of where the player and the team is at. And so we asked DeAndre Hopkins about what exactly is that standing with the team right now. And so his answer today came from, I love Tennessee and I love what Miss Amy is doing. Hopkins said, I think this is the happiest I've been in any organization. So let that speak for itself, which I think is a very interesting answer today.
Texas fans, where you at? Where you at, Texas fans?
Houston, yeah.
Texas fans think they have it bad today. What they don't realize is this might be the second worst day of their DeAndre Hopkins experience. The worst day is going to be the day that DeAndre Hopkins gets inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a Tennessee Titan. That's gonna suck for them.
Wow.
If and when that happens. I don't actually think that's gonna happen, but how funny would it be? Do the players get a say in that? Do you get to choose as a player?
I think you just go in. I don't.
No, you go in as. I think you go in as a. I'm pretty sure you go in as a player of a.
I thought you didn't, but maybe I'm wrong. But that was very interesting. He went on to say.
I hope that I'm right because it's funnier if I'm right, but you might be right.
He also went on to say that, you know, he is a country boy at heart, which I think is very interesting. He clearly loves Nashville. And so was a really interesting and insightful answer to that. And I think that kind of shows where he's at. And so now the ball is kind of in Rand Carthon's court as they get through this season. You know, he's also asked, is there any kind of, or does he buy into the contract year boost? And so DeAndre Hopkins, you know, was very loosely answered that question saying, you know, I'm just going to play my game. I take it day by day, but you know, it'll be interesting to see how this season unfolds and how Tennessee responds in terms of contract extension.
He's a new, I'm sorry, I'm caught on this. Is a new Hall of Fame player member enshrined as a team or a member of as a player or a member of a team? Teams take great pride in kind of, often individual teams and even the Hall of Fame will list enshrinees according to the team or teams on which they spent a significant period of time. An enshrinee, however, is not asked to declare, nor does the Hall of Fame choose a team under which a new player is enshrined. So you're not asked to do it, but you could choose to do it.
Yeah, I guess so.
And after the reports at the end of the Texans run, where it was like Bill O'Brien was like besmirching his name to the public and to the media, and they were getting into fights in the locker room, would be a funny bit, DeAndre. Just let me plant that seed in your mind real quick. Yeah. That is something you could potentially do one day.
All righty. And so now we can look to just a couple of quick hits here from the defensive reactions and then 2 odds and ends, and then we'll get out of here. But the first 2 clips here we got the chance to talk to one of the newest Titans, I guess. Corey Levin and Shane Ray would technically be the newest Titans, but Jamal Adams before that. I guess, right. Jamal Adams, we asked him, you know, why did you pick Tennessee? What made you want to come here? And so his answer is this clip right here.
It's probably the main thing. Obviously, being around Denard, being around Jack and Frank Bush and those guys. Again, it's almost like home base. You know, those guys raised me, and you know, I'm just grateful to be back. How was your?
And so he kind of comes out and says, you know, I really picked this because of the comfortability of being a guy around guys like Denard Wilson and a lot of these defensive head coaches that he has a history with, and calling it kind of home base really kind of, I think, reinforces the idea that Jamal Adams is looking for a fresh start and kind of trying to just build the building blocks of who he is as a player again. And that is going back to basics with guys that, you know, contributed to the best Jamal Adams, the best version of him. And so I think that it was a lot of what went into his decision. And, you know, as a Titans fan, I think you can feel really good that, you know, this is a fit that if he's able to stay healthy could work out for this defense and for the team. And so we asked Jamal Adams after that, you know, you talk a lot about Denard Wilson. What else can you say about him as a coach? And, you know, he goes on here to say he's one of one, and this is the rest of his answer.
Oh man, it's just so many things. He's a very unique guy, one of one. You know, obviously just his accountability, just staying on the players, making sure everybody's, you know, chasing greatness. And, you know, obviously I feel like I got away from that a little bit. You know, you can't slack around him. You can't slack around any of these coaches out here because they're pushing you to be the best.
How's your health?
And so that's an interesting answer from him, saying that he kind of got away with it, but got away from it.
That's some self-awareness there. Yeah.
Talking about maybe his time with Seattle and how things ended there. But now kind of coming back to Denard Wilson, I think, it gives him the best shot to be at least a semblance of what Jamal Adams was.
Was that a line of questioning from you guys? Did anybody dance around the idea that, like, Jamal, you went to Seattle, what happened? Like, or do you still think you got that player in you that's a first team all pro? Was that something you guys asked him about?
So we did ask him about that. And, we're like, Jamal, what does it take for you to get back there? And his answer mainly was around, trusting in God and just believing in his plan for him.
Big fan of that. I'm in on that right there.
Being just trying to stay healthy because he believes that, that play he did double down and say that he believes that player is still in there, even though he's a little bit, with that, if that player is still in there, the maturity that's kind of come with Jamal Adams. I was personally
did he
very
say he's healthy right now, by the way? Did they ask?
He did. Yes. He says he's fully healthy, ready to go. And I think that just kind of more emphasizes the point. He kind of doubled down on telling us about that quad injury that left him in a wheelchair for 10 to 15 weeks without being able to really walk and, not being able to go to the bathroom by himself, not able to shower by himself.
And then coming back that season and trying to play, it's, that there's going to be a ramp up there. So I think
there is. And so,
I'm not all in on Jamal Adams, but if you told me it really worked out, there's a path. I see a path, if that makes sense.
And the way that they've been using him so far, it plays to Jamal Adams' strengths is what I can say there. He's, as a guy who, we've talked about maybe the lacklusterness of coverage, in not being able to play that kind of role. The things that Jamal Adams does really good in the past, being able to blitz off the line of scrimmage and be this kind of guy that can really confuse offenses and find the hole and be that heat-seeking missile
trigger.
You see that from him, and I think that is how playing on a defense as aggressive as Denard Wilson's and how aggressive he wants to be. I think that could really lend itself to working in their favor this season. This clip right here from L'Jarius Sneed, we got to talk to him today, and we talked to him a little bit about his management program. Obviously, he was not out there for the stretching portion. We did not see him, and then he came out during the team period, but still did not participate. He was out there, but was not participating with the team, and so we asked him about that. Is it important to you to, as a kind of veteran leader on this team, be a guy who's out there, even if you are on this management program and not practicing? And here's what he had to say.
The other day, I supposed to came back in and finished my rehab and whatever. I stayed out there and watched those guys, coached them up on the plays. They asked me questions. I tried to give them the best answer I can.
And so, he says he was supposed to go back inside, but, staying out there as the leader he thinks he can be on this team, helping maybe some other guys out on plays, I think speaks to a lot of how bought in L'Jarius Sneed is on this team and this defense. He was, he kind of sung the praises of Denard Wilson's defense today and really says he fits well into this and thinks that if everything goes right, it can be one of the best in the league. And I think along with that, the ability to be that leader and, coach up some of the other guys is going to go a long way.
Yeah, I think that is an important thing, and I'm glad that he recognizes that. I'm fascinated by the L'Jarius Sneed situation. I've never seen a player as young as he is have such confidence in how to have a, let's face it, a chronic issue of some sort, and be so confident so early in your career on the way that you manage that, not just to be able to be out there and to survive or just to succeed, but to dominate, to be so dominant as a young player and have such a significant issue that you're not working through it. Like he seems to, the way that they have talked about it, the way that he approaches it, it seems like he feels like at least he's got it figured out. He knows the recipe to make his body work. And I just find that pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, that is something we asked him about today as well.
Okay.
We were talking about, are you healthy? And he said yes. And he was kind of pressed on that question and says, okay, so if you're healthy, does that mean that you can practice a little bit more? And he said, no, I know my body. I know what I have to do to be out there when the games matter. So
Right.
Talking to that point, it is a very interesting case. But obviously he has his plan that really worked for him in Kansas City. And it sounds like he took that plan, maybe modified it a little bit with the guys here with the Titans. And it seems like they are in a good spot where they are confident that he thinks he's healthy and he knows what he has to do. And so, I'm not sure how much we're going to see of him out here. That's yet to be seen. We saw him yesterday, but not today. So it'll be interesting to kind of monitor that as we go along. Have two more clips here on the defense and then two more and we'll get out of here. This first one here from Kenneth Murray, just kind of talking about, coming to the Titans here, kind of getting a little bit of a fresh start, being ready to go. How does he feel about, his position with the Titans and coming to this new team and being able to make an impact? Here's what he had to say on that matter.
Now I'm healthy, back into the swing of things. It's a lot of mental side of stuff. Learning the playbook and doing different things like that. So yeah.
That shoulder back to normal, man?
Yeah, I'm 100%. So everything's good.
And so it sounds like he's pretty confident about his ability to make an impact on this team. And even so, right, that's something that we really are going to have to see. But I can tell you for one thing, Brian Callahan was very confident in Kenneth Murray today. We asked him about how he's looked so far through 2 days. And what he had to say is that he triggers fast. He's hard to block. He diagnoses really quick, and his ability to react is impressive, which kind of is counterintuitive to the things we've said about him. And so with that, Kenneth Murray, I think he has a lot to prove here, right? And so we're going to have to see the results on the field, because it's one thing to be able to trigger like that and diagnose plays in padless football. But when you have another team on you and you have a guy like a Zay Flowers or a Jackson Smith and Jigba or a Josh Downs, who you're going to see twice a year, in those situations, can he be that player that Brian Callahan thinks he can? It'll be interesting to see.
Fair enough.
This last clip here is from Roger McCrory. We got to talk to him today as well. This is just a little bit more about how he's learning the playbook and kind of how he's approaching this season a little bit differently, being more of a student of the game and how he is able to elevate his game because of the style of defense Denard Wilson wants to play. And here was his answer on that.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's more about, just being a player of the game, just learning the playbook, because if you learn the playbook, you can play fast and you play aggressive. You don't got to think so much. So, when we get in the means, we're just trying to be a student of the game, really, and just proving out.
I know he's going to be...
Yeah, I think that... And so he seems like he is bought into the Denard Wilson defense as well. And so, obviously, with the absence of Chido Awuzie, he's going to have to step up on this defense. And we talked to him about how versatile can you be with your game. And he says he can play both positions, but he feels like he's in a good spot right now. Obviously, playing that inside slot corner position, I think, is going to be what leads to most of his success. But that versatility on Denard Wilson's defense definitely can be a big factor, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just distracted by the comments here. I think Roger McCray. I want to ask you a question that I know you can't answer, so I'm trying to figure out how to ask the question. I guess what I'll say is, from just the 2 days we've seen from Roger McCreary, plus what you and I saw in the spring from him, I know you came out of the spring kind of talking about him being at near the top, if not at the top of the guys you think may be a serious breakout candidate this season, even though he's slotted into most folks' depth charts on the cornerback 3 role, that slot nickel guy that's going to be playing inside most of the time, which is where I think he's supposed to be. But that doesn't mean that he isn't capable of playing outside. Do you get the impression that he maybe moves a little bit more? Do you get the impression that he's coming into the season improve? Does he feel dominant out there to you? What has been your impression watching him from the sidelines as far as what you can actually say?
I would say to his improvement, I think this is probably the best version of Roger McCreary we've seen so far.
Okay.
We talk about the play that he made today. It was more of a seam play down the middle on his pass breakup of Tyler Boyd, where he was playing a little bit more against Tyler Boyd. He looked very dominant. He looked like a guy who is going to be one of those leaders and aggressive dominators on the field that maybe we haven't seen from Roger McCreary. So from that aspect of it, I definitely can say that this will be I would say that my hype for Roger McCreary has not weakened. It is not faltered.
Only
I
growing.
Still,
okay.
It's still
All right.
growing. From what I've seen so far, I still very much believe that if there is anyone who can break out on this Titans defense this year and have, an all pro caliber season, I really do think it is Roger McCreary.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I hope to see it.
All right. And so these last two clips, just some odds and ends here. First up, Ryan Stonehouse is back, not on the PUP list. He is out there kicking punts. He's out there doing the thing. And so he was asked on yesterday's practice, if there was an NFL game today, could you be able to punt in that game? And this was his answer to that, and just kind of telling of where he is right now in his recovery process.
Where I'm at right now, like, I don't see a thing, but I think that there's so much room for improvement, just getting back out there. And that's why I'm taking one step at a time. I think this was the first step, and, not going on PUP was huge because, these are valuable reps, and you only get so many reps, that are game-like. And these are my game reps right now. I didn't get to hunt OTAs, which I would have loved to, but I do feel like I'm on the right road back.
And so then the final clip we have here is from Peter Skoronski today, who we also were able to talk to, and just a little bit more about, how meaningful these reps are right now, getting and building that chemistry with the guys around you, most notably JC Latham and Lloyd Cushenberry on his side of the line, and how much that matters right now, only even 2 days into training camp. And here's what he had to say.
This is the time to do that. Obviously camp feels long, but at the end of the day, it's not that many reps, so you have to take advantage of every single rep that you have out here because, we have a preseason game in 2 weeks, and then 2 or 3 weeks later we're playing. So I think it puts the emphasis on every single rep you take, especially with that first group is kind of working together and executing because preseason season will be here.
All right. And those are the clips that we have today. A lot of show and tell for you guys today.
Yeah.
But that's Titans football training camp is back, baby. We're out there, doing
It feels good to be back. It feels
thing.
good to be showing these clips on the show. I will say I'm excited to the point of being relieved to hear that we're going to be in pads as early as the beginning of next week. Just because as fun as that is, it's, we saw that in the spring. We got another little appetizer here to start off the summer portion, but let's get into some real football. Let's see these guys start popping pads. Let's see some let's see some banging of hats out there is what I like to see. So JT, very appreciative of all the work you did the last 2 days. I would not have been able to do the show today because I would not have known what to say. So thank you for updating me and everyone out there that did not catch every second of it like you did on what we saw. Like you mentioned earlier, the next we'll hear and see from the Titans will be on Saturday at the, what are they calling it? The back together Saturday
weekend,
back together event. Yeah, it's gonna be a fanfare event at Nissan Stadium. Practice from like 10 to 12, something like that, on Saturday afternoon at Nissan Stadium,
something like that.
Like that. Should be a fun one. I may very well be there. JT will definitely be there. I really don't want to miss it. I might have to miss it because important things, but if I can be, I'll be there. And then on Tuesday, I'm definitely going to be at one of these two things because on Tuesday they'll be wearing pads, and I will be pulling every string that I have. If someone wants to come babysit so that I can go do that, that'd be awesome. I will not abandon my wife, but if she's good, I might pop out to practice for an hour and see what's going on. Okay. Appreciate everybody watching with us live on a Thursday. I'm going to go sleep. If you were counting Easton, the yawn counter for Easton went up to like 13 by the end of today's show. So I'm going to go do that. Logan in the chat. This man is already back after sleeping in the hospital for 3 days. I slept in the hospital for 2 days, so I'm fine. It's not a big deal. I'm just very tired. But like you said, incredible resilience and dedication. That's what we do. We focus on the ball, And she, you know, the new child doesn't change. Well, it does change that, but it doesn't stop that. And that's what's important.
Over under a week and a half until baby cam is officially up and running. Hashtag hot read baby cam.
The baby may make a visual appearance on the show at some point this month. If I can convince my wife to let me have her. You know, new moms love to have their baby and not give other people the baby, which is understandable. So
I mean,
even
I've
as the
heard
dad, you
through
have
the
to fight
grapevine
the-
that your baby has some hot takes on Anthony Richardson, some hot
yeah,
takes on
in the very
Devontae
short
Sweat.
period of time that I've
You
had
know,
to spend with her
she-
one-on-one
she's
so
already,
far,
you know,
she's been
learning
whispering
some
these sweet
ball.
nothings into my ear. First of all, shocked she knows English already, but she's just that intelligent. Not that surprised that she was early on it. Surprised by just how early. And then for her to have such fantastic knowledge of ball, I don't know. Maybe she'll have some more hot takes I drop on the timeline as the training camp goes on. But anyways, Saturday practice, Tuesday practice. We'll be back on Tuesday of next week. JT and I will be recapping those two practices, what we saw and what
Boys
we
and
heard
pads, men and
in
pads.
those pads. It's gonna really suck if that's
Prove it in pads.
true,
If it's not,
yeah, it's gonna really
he
suck.
said that the CBA needs 7 days of non
Contact,
and they technically started on Tuesday. They were
so
in the
can it be
building
the
on
7th
Tuesday.
day? Oh, I see. Yeah.
So,
But does that mean you have to practice on every day? Like, do they practice Sunday? Do they practice Monday?
I don't know.
Okay, well, hoping and praying that they practice in pads on Tuesday. Until then, whether they're practicing in pads or naked or, you know, whatever they're practicing in, we'll have covered it and be back here on the Hot Read podcast at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. Until then, one more time, go to the comment section or go to the description of this podcast. Find the link to the survey we're doing here on the 440 Podcast Network. Just 5 minutes.
Survey.
JT's holding you at gunpoint to do this favor. Fill it out. He's got your family. He's got them captive. We would really appreciate if you guys would fill that out. It takes 5 minutes. The answers are private. We won't see who says what. We're trying to make a better product for you here on the 440 Podcast Network. And we can only do that if you tell us what you want. So go over there, do that for us. Until then, for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you then. All right.